back Zach Wilson?
I'm going to get to the tape and just evaluate everything, and I'll leave it at that. We're keeping everything on the table over the next couple of days.
So you're not committing to Zach as your starter for Sunday?
Not right now, not until I'm done evaluating everything.
That's the first time you suggested that, left it open a little bit, or I think it was about 3 weeks ago where you said your starter for the remainder of the season, barring injury. What's changed?
I've got to be able to sit back. I think we all got to be able to sit back and just look at what's best for this organization and this team.
Mike, your thoughts?
So the only way I could interpret that, and because I live in the minutia of all of this, he was almost 2 hours late for his media availability yesterday, which he almost never is, according to the people who cover the team.
Who?
Saleh. And I have to believe that is because there were extensive conversations going on about this decision, which is a franchise-shaping decision. And the only way I can interpret it, and I because we have already established my credentials as a fan, sometimes I think people are mistakenly of the opinion that I'm an insider. I don't talk to anyone. I don't know any more than any other fan does, except that I read literally everything that is written and tweeted about them. The only assumption I can make, Max, is that the locker room is in a place now that is so bad that I think Saleh's initial inclination clearly was, we got to ride this out. Here's the most important thing. I'm talking around the point. We cannot get to the end of this season not knowing if Zach Wilson is going to be your quarterback or not. That's the worst case scenario because the roster is so loaded, as you just pointed out. And a year from now, those guys will have a year under their belts. This is a team that could compete for the division, could compete for a deep playoff run next year.
Super Bowl.
Perhaps even a Super Bowl next year. I can't even bring myself to say the words, but yes. If Zach Wilson isn't going to be the guy, this requires an aggressive move. This is not. We're not talking about bringing in someone to compete with him. You're talking about moving on and going after. I'm just going to throw names out there. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, whoever the disgruntled quarterback who wants a new team is this coming off season. I would not be in favor of drafting one again. We've done that a lot lately. It hasn't worked out so well. So go out and get like a veteran who just you step into like a tailor-made situation. The Jets are that. They have to know by the end of the season if that's going to be the case or not. You can't find that out without playing Zach Wilson. So I have to believe that what they want in their hearts of hearts, by they I mean the coaches and the organization, is to play Zach Wilson. And I have to believe that the reason this was delayed yesterday and the reason that Saleh for the first time is not committing is that he has come to recognize that his locker room would be in total turmoil. There would be a revolt bordering on mutiny because I think the team is so disgusted with the kid, with his play, and more importantly, with his attitude. That is an assumption that I'm making from the outside.
Well, I would say you probably are not making the wrong assumption, Greeny. I think that you're right there where the locker room's an issue, and they also have to look, and I said this yesterday, they have to look forward and not backwards with him, right? They got to make a decision on what they want to do. But in order to make that decision and do this process is if you've got to kind of let him fail. You can't just one game snatch the carpet from underneath them. You go into the Chicago game, you see where it's at, you take the temperature, and let's see what happens. And you have Joe Flacco ready to go. Because if you decide that I'm going to bench him right now, you're going to lose him completely unless you made your mind up as a coaching staff in the front office that no matter what, we're moving on from him at the end of the season. You don't bench him right now because you'll never get him back. He's too young and too fragile. This is not a veteran quarterback. This is a kid that 5-6 years ago, he was at a high school prom. So you got to handle him a little delicate into such due time. Now you say, well, they're going to waste the season. They're not going to the Super Bowl with him this year anyway. So let's see where things go. And like you said, get ready for next year with one of these veteran Aaron Rodgers, Carr, Daniel Jones type quarterbacks.
I agree. I absolutely completely agree with everything you just said. Sitting where I'm sitting, that's what I would do. The thing, though, Key, and you would know this obviously 1,000 times better than I would, and Jay, you as well, is there a point at which Robert Saleh has to weigh the damage that will be done inside his own building amongst the other 52 players on that team. Did he get the feedback, be it some of it in direct and some of it indirect, from the moment the game ended until he met with the media yesterday? Coach, you can't put that kid out there again. We cannot play with him. We cannot play for him. You will lose too many people in this room. That has to be the reason that he didn't do it, Key.
But think about it, though, Greeny. 2 weeks ago, they beat the Buffalo Bills, and he was the quarterback.
Yes, I'm with you.
Right? So it's like
you and I agree. We're on the same page. 5 days ago, what is today? Tuesday. 3 days ago, if you had said to me, "Hey, do you think the conversation this week is going to be should the Jets bench Zach Wilson?"
Yeah.
I would have said you're out of your mind.
We don't know that everything has been great about Zach Wilson in the locker room. By the way, like just to throw it out there, like sometimes things fester.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a moment where it actually explodes, and it becomes a bigger thing.
Look,
so
Jay,
I think this chemistry thing within the locker room is way bigger than what people are giving it credit for.
No, I mean, I think I don't know how much more credit you could be giving it than I'm giving it. Here's what I will tell you. So I do the draft now for ESPN. The draft in which Zach and all those quarterbacks went in the first round was my first one. So I've never in my life prepared for anything as much as, remember when we took the SAT, Max? That's what Max and I were doing while you guys were off being great athletes. You study and you study and you study. That's how I handled that first draft. And Zach Wilson was the second pick. And there were the whispers about the attitude problem. I mean, that was out there and amongst people. That was the question mark on him. The talent was unquestioned. The questions were the attitude. He wasn't a captain in college. That's a red flag immediately.
Major sign.
There were all of these questions about his attitude, entitled, all that kind of stuff. And that's out there. Now, that red flags far more significant than that have been attached to players who've gone on to Hall of Fame careers. But this was the concern. So to your point, Jay, that maybe there have already been problems that have been kept under wraps with him in the locker room, that certainly feels like a possibility.
Mike, you said the talent was unquestioned, and I thought so. I thought, they're going to draft him instead of Justin Fields. Are they crazy? Then I watched YouTube. I didn't watch BYU games, right? So I watched YouTube. I'm like, oh, my God, I see what they're saying. Then Mina Kimes, I'm yelling this on First Take. No, they should take that. Then Mina Kimes comes on, and she's like, Max, look at the offensive line at BYU. I'm not paying attention to BYU, right? Mina's right. I went back and looked. He has a lot of time. So when you say the talent's unquestioned at the college level, fine. And, he's better than Steve Young, like all this stuff out of you heard alumni say. But in the NFL, do you think the talent is I understand there's a difference between saying it's above the line you need to be in order to compete for, in the playoffs. But is it like unquestioned elite talent? It doesn't seem that way.
So there are two things he inarguably does very well. One of them, he has an extraordinarily strong arm. I mean, that's why Sunday frustrated me so much, because if you look at Zach Wilson and Mac Jones, which of them should have no trouble, or certainly far less trouble, zipping the ball through a windy day in Foxborough? You would think Zach Wilson, who has zip on the ball unlike any quarterback I've seen on the Jets since Vinny Testaverde, or Mac Jones, who the knock on him is he doesn't have the arm strength. So he clearly has that. The other is he has the mobility. When you watch him back there, he runs around like a bit. Sometimes it makes you scared to death, but he is extremely mobile. He is very elusive and all that stuff. And actually, I think should run a little more than he does. One of the fears with that, obviously, is that he's small, and you're afraid of him taking hits. So maybe you're right. He has enough talent, obviously. I mean, the arm talent, I think, is unquestioned. And he has enough physical talent, certainly, to be good. But that's just like the ante. Like, you're just getting into the game when you have those things. And I'm starting to become very worried he doesn't have any of the things that actually matter a lot more.
And sometimes just because you check a box, you have arm talent. But not all arm talent is created equal. You may check a box and be above a certain line, but still not be elite, because there are guys with some very big arms. Like, all that remains to be seen. Meantime, Mike, at 10 after every single hour on this program, we give a winning word, because the KJM 10K a day giveaway, yes, it's 10,000 a day, but it's 2,500 every hour.
Right.
Right? So we give a winning word, and you text this word to 777-000.
KJ and Max, 10K giveaway.
And apropos of nothing, the winning word